morning. Welcome to Business Focus program. Today my guest is Hadley Dean, founder of MDC Square. Hadley has been successfully operating in the Polish commercial real estate market for over 20 years, and his latest focus is warehouse market. And this is exactly the topic of our today discussion. So good morning, Hadley.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, but before we start talking about the warehouse market itself, please tell us why you decided to enter this market and set up a company actually last year, right, in 2021, MDC Square, which is a developer of warehouse and industrial spaces.
Well, I've been living and working in Poland now for over 20 years. And what a lot of people don't know is that my background before Poland actually was industrial and logistics. So I came out to set up an agency business here on the logistics business because that was my background. And all through my time as a consultant, I was not just running, let's say, Poland and Central Europe, but I was also running the logistics business in Europe, Middle East, and Africa for that consultancy. So this was my background. So when I went into retail at EPP, a lot of friends were, how come you've gone from logistics into retail? Yeah.
Okay. Well, I didn't know this as well. Okay, so you write on your website that your goal is simply to be a developer that leads the change in the Polish marketplace by being sustainable, transparent, and behaving with the integrity. So you refer to ESG. Popular topic, but very tough one. I wouldn't be, I'm not that optimistic looking at the market itself. I think that there is still too much of greenwashing. Maybe it's, not understanding the fundamentals of ESG. So I'm wondering, what's your mission toward what is actually happening on the market, where you see the need of change? And here I'm not even asking about the specific tools and solutions, but also maybe maturity, maybe some mental change, mental shift toward that this is really happening and we really have to make a step forward.
Yeah. So let's tackle this in two areas, if you don't mind, because I think about the change that's necessary in the industrial market, and then let's talk about ESG. Yeah. So, in my opinion, one of the exciting things is about setting up a new business is you can start it as you want it and build it as you want it. And we're fortunate to have attracted a great team of, let's say, talented people who've been working in this area for 20 years. So we think the biggest need for change is absolute transparency. Yeah, there is the development business in Poland in logistics is opaque, and what investors want and tenants want is complete transparency on costs, on the ability to see through the business. So I took a lot of what I learned in the public markets and have put it into a private development business, which has an international focus, but it's a Polish business. Yeah, so what it means is there's real governance and there's real structure, and investors and tenants are responding very well to it. So, for example, all investors who come into our business on a project, they have a right to do a forensic audit on all of our construction costs, on all of our emails, if they want to. That's how transparent we are. And that is very much where I would say Western Europe is. And it's now actually what that investors are asking for and the tenants are asking in Poland. So that's leading the change on that side.
So you are optimistic that the investors pressured can really make a change?
I'm not that I'm optimistic. I've seen it.
Okay.
And it's we are effectively a startup that's become a scale up, and we're attracting listed companies and major institutional investors who actually want to see that change.
Okay, well, that's very good, because to be honest, in several other sectors I saw, or when I talked off the record with people, for example, in the car business or others, they said, we have a corporate multinational companies that, for example, have their strategy going neutral, right? And they, for example, apply some solutions toward being such a carbon neutral company in other markets. But, for example, if it turns out about the discussion about the fleet in Poland, that is elsewhere but not in Poland. So you don't see such a different approach toward Poland and other countries if you work even with the global investors, for example.
If you want to raise money in real estate, and if you do not have a coherent ESG statement, and you actually cannot demonstrate that you're actually doing what you're saying, they will not invest with you. So here's an example. So if you say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to have paddleboard courts and we're going to have outdoor gyms, and you don't actually have them on the pictorials of the projects you're going to design, a savvy investor will actually look through that. ESG department will look through all of your, let's say, your marketing, and say, well, actually, this is not consistent with what you're saying, and therefore we do not believe you, and you won't get the money.
And of course, when we talk about ESG, it's not only environmental, but it's also social and governance. So how would you tackle that?
Well, that's I love it that you're asking that question, because everyone focuses on the E of ESG, and it's very important. But actually, in real estate, the E is really, it's what you're building to a BREEAM, a new excellent, a new construction excellent, or are you building to very good? So all of our buildings as standard, and we don't, a lot of our peers will say, well, what type of building do you want to the tenants? We don't say that. We say we are building a BREEAM excellent new construction building as our standard. There's only 2 in Poland, or a handful in Poland, that have actually been built and certified. That's our standard base case. So that's the E side. But what people forget is the S. And the G. And, this is not just for your tenants, but it's also internally. So let's focus on what tenants want. The biggest problem tenants have at the moment is retention of staff. If you're building a building which has a outdoor gym and actually has a water pond where the retention tank goes, all the water goes in from the retention tank, and you make a nice picnic area around it, who are people going to work with? If someone offered them 1 zloty more across the road, would they rather have a nice outdoor area where they can actually sit and have a paddleball court and play football? And these are the types of things tenants want. So what we also are doing is that we are linking now every development we build, we are buying 1 square meter of forest for every meter we build.
Okay.
So we've just announced a tie-up with a Polish charity called Forest Forever. And so, for example, in, let's say, 2 of our developments, we'll be building, let's say, a 60,000 square meter project, and we're buying a 6-hectare forest that was going to be felled near the project. And every year we will take the tenants out to that forest. We'll link the forest with this project, and they'll replant, and they'll actually have a link. So we're actually, that's money out of our profits that we're actually taking, and we're actually doing something about it. And I think that's pretty powerful. But it's not just also what you're doing for the tenants. It's also what you're doing for your team. So again, one of the things that we've done is that, let's be frank, I mean, this pandemic has gone on a long time, and mental awareness and mental health has been a pretty challenging period. So what we've also said to our team is that every July, for the first week of July, the whole company takes a week off at the same time on top of their holidays. And, the reality is that, if I'm on holiday, my assistant is probably not on holiday. She's working flat out. And, and vice versa. So if we all go on holiday at the same time, you can actually have a proper break. And we chose that week because it's the first week of the school holidays.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, excellent idea. And I think that's really impactful.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on this.
And that's just the start. But it would be. But we also want to bring our employees into the profit of the company as well. And but that's more a private internal thing, and it's been announced internally, but it's not really for public dissemination. Now let's get to the G. Can we get to the G?
Yes, let's get to the G.
Because no one wants to talk about the G, because that is the most crucial part. Are you delivering on your promises? And what happens if you don't? Because everyone is sick of going along the highway and seeing a billboard that used to be one color that's been turned into green. It's meaningless. Everyone, greenwashing, you use the word. It's people want to see that it actually means something. So we have an ESG committee that reports to the chairman of our company that has real teeth. It determines the management team's bonuses. It sets out the agenda. Bonuses are attributed to, are you delivering on that agenda? And if the management team is not delivering on that agenda, they get dismissed. That's real governance, and that's teeth. And we have independent advisors who sit as a consultant, and we'll be announcing 2 shortly, that sit actually on our board advising our chairman and our non-executive directors. And that's how it should be.
Well, that sounds actually very interesting, because I think that the problem is that a lot of companies, they made the announcement, but later there is no check. And also, if you don't have a KPIs or any operational or procedures towards, checking and verifying what is happening, that actually it's just letting it go, right? And it really doesn't matter, because, life goes so quickly that later you forget what you announced and you just, move forward. So I think that's...
people, journalists and the public and, are watching this now much, much more carefully, and rightly so. So those days are over. It's not just marketing. You've actually got to walk the talk and mean it.
So you have to prove it, yes. So I hope that there will be more case studies. And of course, if 1, 2, 3 companies will really set up good benchmarks, then in the natural way, probably the market will follow.
Well, I think the way a lot of companies look at it is they want to try and own the green space. And that's just a wrong approach. Like, we're all stakeholders in this. We're not trying to, companies shouldn't approach this that we want to own it and we want to dominate this space because it makes our company look better. Absolute rubbish. What we need to be doing is we need to be stakeholders in the community, actually just raising the bar. It's not just that we want to be the best at this. We want everyone, and actually Poland, when I look at some of our peers, they're actually really advanced in this. And I think Poland has an opportunity to actually leapfrog the West. We're a bit behind, but I think there's a real opportunity for Poland actually to leapfrog the West and get to, where Holland is, let's say, quite quickly.
I think that's also connected to the fact that we have so much new infrastructure under development, right? And that's also something that gives you a big opportunities to make it very good from the scratch, right? But I think that, the first step is, attitude and approach, and later you can put it into the business schemes and projects, right? Okay, so what I wanted to ask you, because as you mentioned before, setting up the company, we're also connected to the retail market for a long time. And I know that a lot of experts are looking at this like retail and warehousing like two sides of the same coin, and looking at the factors that are driving the sector, not only in Poland, elsewhere. How do you see it?
Well, I don't see it as two sides of the same coin. No, it's particularly so when you're looking at Western Europe, a lot of people confuse what's happening in the UK with what will happen in Poland, and that's just not the case. Of course, online sales is growing, but the fact is, Poland doesn't have high streets. The fact is that people really enjoy going to shopping centres. The fact is that when you look at the retail spend in shopping centres, it's growing each year. Those are facts. They are undeniable facts. So it's not doom and gloom on retail. But having witnessed the impact of online as the largest shopping centre owner in Poland, I can categorically tell you it is impacting the way people shop clearly. And what has happened during the pandemic is those behaviors have fundamentally shifted now. So what does that mean for logistics? Well, actually a lot. Typically e-commerce players need 3 times more space. And what we're seeing is really 3 things happening in the logistics market. One is you're seeing just-in-time supply chain to go just in case. So every retailer, every supplier is adding 20% buffer to their stock, pretty much. So that means a lot more warehousing space. We're also seeing a fundamental change in the amount of manufacturing that's moving, or new manufacturing that's going to Asia, particularly China. With the new FDI rules that the government passed, it doesn't, it gives real concern to the legal security you have of your own building. I mean, really, it's and we're seeing a lot of manufacturing now moving back to Europe and the US as a result.
And of course, Poland is benefiting from nearshoring a lot, and this is expected to grow.
And of course, then you've got this online shopping, which needs 3 times more space.
And being delivered much faster, because that's another factor, right? So my question was also in terms of the space itself, right? Because city logistics, and I think at the same time, really, I don't know if you perceive it as a challenge, but, getting a plot for this type of logistics properties, and then, the e-commerce players announcing that actually they will deliver their products even faster. So that all has the impact on where to place the operations, right?
Yeah, it does. So it's there's a lot of change going on in logistics where, locations are, you're going to start seeing a lot of the first generation buildings built in the late 90s being torn down, putting up, repurposing those buildings. And, what you're going to see as well is you're going to start, so if you look at what's happened in the States in the last 3 years, is that demand has gone through the roof, and supply cannot keep up with demand. As we said, retailing, online needs 3 to 4 times more space than traditional logistics. So what does that mean? So when you then look at, let's say, the UK and Europe, so when Savills did some really interesting research, they broke it back down to, there's a magic moment, is when online sales went over 10.7% of the bricks and mortar spend. that is the moment where the supply went through the roof in the UK. And when online sales, and Morgan Stanley did a really interesting piece of research showing the biggest period of rental growth is from 11% to 16%. So what a lot of people are forecasting is we're going to see significant rental growth in Poland. Now, people have been talking about this for 20 years, and I've never seen it, but it's coming. So in the States, so this is my belief, okay? So in the States, it's forecast that in the next 4 years, they need to build 100 million square meters of new space just for e-commerce. Forget onshoring or the additional 20% supply chain. In Europe, it's 30 million square meters. Now, where are you going to build that? In Germany? Or in the Netherlands? I mean, a lot of that is going to be in Poland, in the western side of Poland. So I believe that the demand for Polish logistics real estate is going to go from 5 to 6 billion to 10 million square meters in the next 3 years. And that is one of the reasons why we've set up, let's say, our business at this time.
To be a part of this growth. Okay, perfect. And well, so actually that what you are saying is maybe answering a little bit on my big surprise, yes, because when I took a look on the figures from 2021, it seems that more or less 30% of all the developments are without secured leases. So my question was, what does it mean about the market? But
yeah, so that's
I think
so. That last year, I think the total take up was between sort of 6 and 7 million. I mean, that's a bigger take up than the UK market. That is how, and very few people know how significant Poland has become in the context of Europe. Poland now is the logistics hub for Europe.
Well, that's very optimistic, and I wish you all the best to tackle as much as possible this growth and, really create it on the great fundamentals, which I personally love. Thank you very much.
Thank you.